Hey everyone, I'm Horace, and I want to start by just saying a deep gratitude and reverence to the ancestral homelands that we're both on. I feel like it's really important to start in that way, especially as spiritual people, magicians, or whatever you want to call it. It's just being human, to be honest. We call all these things spiritual because we don't really have a category for it. These things are normal. We as humans have done ritual, have done ceremony, have worked with the directions, have worked with the timing of the stars and how they move and the elements and the sun and everything. Because back then we didn't have to externalize our facilities so much. We didn't have to externalize our nervous system regulation by using social media, listening to music, AI, all these things that we're using to kind of soothe ourselves, to quiet the mind, to find understanding. We have those tools within us. We have those faculties within us. We can go within, and there's so much information stored within us, within our DNA, within our spine, within the water and the blood within us. There's so much info within us, and there is so much that we can do with the breath as well, and the breath being the key to helping us move through a lot of mental stagnation and even moving the physical body. There's so much stored in the soma, in the fascia, in every part of our bodies that I feel like is kind of hidden from us for a reason. I've been thinking about this idea of like generational trauma and like ancestral healing, and how I feel like a lot of the things that like get passed down to us when we're born, in terms of like ancestral stories or ancestral dynamics that are being asked to be healed and balanced, even the way that other people interact with our own ancestral line. Maybe you have incarnated in this life as a cycle breaker to meet someone that has been part of a ancestral line that your ancestry like had issues with, and now you're coming into this life. Maybe you're in a relationship with this person, maybe you're close friends with this person, but you're building a deep connection to this person in order to heal that ancient conflict with your ancestral line and their ancestral line. I'm not super sure why that's coming through, but I say all this because I think the way that a lot of these things that we struggle with within, my generation, I think a lot of us are cycle breakers. I think a lot of, millennials, Gen Z, and I don't know, maybe that's not super accurate, because I feel like cycle breakers are incarnated at so many different moments throughout time, So I take that back. I think it's just maybe an archetype that a lot of us have, and maybe we're just all cycle breakers. I think there's a part of spirituality as well that talks about star seeds and the chosen ones, and it makes us feel like more special than we are sometimes. And I think it's important to know that we are all super special, and we all come in for a specific purpose. And yes, there are like NPCs out there, quote unquote, or people that it's not their time, it's not their incarnation to come in and be, quote unquote, awakened or to heal. I think we all have a specific role on the planet. But again, going back to the subconscious, a lot of these things that come through our ancestral line that aren't really ours, but not saying that they're not ours in a way that is like, oh, that's not my fault. It's like, yeah, it's not necessarily yours, but you get to benefit from your ancestral line. So you get all these beautiful gifts, all these beautiful qualities of being, you know, part of your ancestral line, but then you also get all of these other things, this like packet of information, this briefcase that's like, hey, you are benefiting from your ancestral line, you have been birthed into this royal bloodline, and now in order to, you know, I guess keep your end of the bargain, you have to deal with all this stuff and help your ancestors and continue as they are passing the torch from, you know, them to you. And it's just a part of being human. It's not something that makes you better or worse or anything like that. It's just something that I feel like we're all doing in our own way. Even if it's one little step, even if like you see that this person is like quote unquote like an NPC or they're not awakened or whatever, like I feel like within the spiritual community we try to like quantify things, like we try to measure things with like numbers or scales, and spirituality is like just so fluid, you know. And also, we're all multi-dimensional beings. So maybe the version of that person that you're interacting with, maybe they are supposed to be quote-unquote like an NPC. But maybe in a different timeline or parallel universe, they're just like you. And maybe by them being an NPC, quote-unquote, like they're showing you a reflection of something within yourself, you know? So not better or worse, just different, you know? And I think that is kind of the sweet spot with life. It is this balance between duality, you know, the sun, the moon, good, bad, yin, yang, fire, water, earth, air, just so many polarities. And you know, quote unquote good and quote unquote bad, I feel like that's not even the right word, you know. Maybe it's better like light and darkness, and knowing that there is so much medicine in darkness, in the shadow, in the subconscious, and there's so much beauty in the light. But too much of either can be bad for us, you know. And I think holding on to also specific beliefs and holding ourselves in time for too long can be kind of bad too. You know, we're not always supposed to stay the same. If we hold food for too long, it gets spoiled, you know. I think certain things are supposed to be released and transformed and evolved, you know, so that we can tend to what needs to be tended to, you know. Everyone here on the planet, everyone watching this video, you are a tender of all life on the planet. You know, that is our number one mission here, all of us, no matter what. You are a tender of all life. And that is, I feel like, more of a quote-unquote, well, that's not even accurate. I was going to say a quote-unquote feminine, energetic kind of quality. But when we think about the masculine and the feminine, they both tend to life in their own way. The mother and the father, they tend to life in their own way. Everything really is tending to life. But I think in a lot of, you know, spiritual traditions, they mostly talk about the feminine being the one that is tending to life because, you know, she has a womb and she can create life and she can birth things into the world. But I think the masculine also, you know, tends to life as well in their own way. This is the energy of Mars, the energy of the warrior, the energy of, you know, there's so many masculine, you know, archetypes out there. But one day I will finish my thought on the subconscious, going back to the subconscious again. So I bring this up, this idea of generational trauma or generational contracts being passed through the subconscious. because I feel like, you know, a lot of these things that are within the subconscious are kind of hidden from us. You know, they're kept from us, and they affect us on more of a unseen or spiritual level. And it's hard for us to understand, like, why do I keep on having these experiences with money, or in these kinds of relationships, or this kind of thing? Or why do I keep on attracting, you know, this type of person or this kind of job? And it's not tangible. We can't really see it, which makes me think that this is something that's within the subconscious. This is something that's hidden. So in order for us to move through, I feel like, a lot of aspects of ancestral healing, we have to really tackle it through the subconscious, through the spiritual realm, through the unseen, you know? And I think this is important to share, because a lot of us are not really understanding why we're in these specific loops. But the beautiful thing about the subconscious is that people think that it is somewhere outside of us, or it's somewhere really deep in the mind. But I feel like the subconscious is in a lot of places. I think, you know, there's this idea of as above, so below. You know, what happens in the heavens, what happens outside of us, is a deep reflection of what's happening within us. So if you take that idea, I feel like the subconscious and the key to ancestral healing is within us, within our own bodies, within our own blood. You know, we can't really see what's happening inside of our body. So that can also be, quote unquote, like a symbolic metaphor of the unseen. So for me, I share this because I feel like I've been doing a lot of ancestral healing by just doing a parasite cleanse. Pretty simple, you know? But I think there are different things that get passed down to us. Illnesses, you know, gut bacteria, so many different things that are passed down to us from our mother's womb that when we're born into the physical plane, we still have to deal with. You know, we still have those ancestral contracts within us. So I feel like for me, I've done a lot of healing when I was living on a farm for 4 months in California. And I did a lot of healing there because it was triggering and it was a lot of hard work, and I was working with animals and, you know, gardens and doing a lot of things that I've never done before. But also, I was working a lot with like the poop of a lot of animals, and they were all fed really well, like great, like organic feed. You know, the host of the farm, she had the money and the resources to really nourish her animals in like the best way possible. She was really into holistic health and naturopathy. So anytime that we like ate food, it was probably most likely from the garden or from the animals that were raised on that farm. So because of that, like, I feel like my gut bacteria and my overall health like improved so much. And after that, me and my partner at that time, we moved from California to Portland, continued to do some healing there. I love Portland so much. And then we moved to San Diego and did a lot of healing there as well. And then we came back to the East Coast, did a lot of healing there as well. We split up, and then I feel like kind of like completing that huge cycle here by myself, kind of integrating everything that has happened the past few years. So it's kind of a lot, you know. That was kind of like 4 or 5 years of just healing. But healing where I'm like tangibly, directly like healing different things that are coming up with like tools that have been passed down to me from, you know, yes, my guides in the unseen, but also like my seen teachers, my incarnated teachers that are here, that have come forward, and I found them and they found me in order to, you know, give a specific code to me. And I'm so grateful, you know, for them, for that, because, you know, they've really aided my own soul's purpose and my own evolution. And the reason that I'm able to show up in this way and even talk on camera and share all of these things is because of them, and because of my ancestors, and because of all the beautiful people that I've met, because of my past partner, because of my dog, because of my family. So knowing that, you know, like, we're all collages of all of our experiences and all of the people that have influenced our lives. So I feel like that's really important to put here as well. So going back to kind of like the main point that I keep on circling back to, and you'll notice that if you're in the right, quote unquote, right spiritual circles, you'll meet you know, people that are connected or that have been taught from indigenous people, and they'll teach in this way. They'll teach in this way where they're just going around a spiral. You know, I think a lot of us, the way that we learn information in, you know, the school system is through a presentation, and it's very linear. And honestly, like, I like learning like that because, you know, my Virgo, I have a Virgo sun and a Virgo Mercury, and I like kind of like linear things like that. But I think about the things that really stay with me, and the things that really stay with me are given and passed through storytelling, through speaking in spirals, through a transmission versus a presentation. And both are great, you know. I think if I was wanting to learn like a very specific thing, like, okay, I want to learn about like channeling or herbalism, like, that's super great, you know. But I think there is a beauty in receiving teachings through a transmission and orally, because I think sometimes those are the things that like really embed themselves within us, you know, in a different way, in a way that is called gnosis. So the way that I understand gnosis is that gnosis is the wisdom that comes up after experiencing something, and no one can kind of quantify gnosis for you, you know. Like, I can take something like super simple, like a sip of water, and have some type of spiritual awakening or some huge download, and that is gnosis, you know. That is like some type of awakening or some type of beautiful spiritual awakening or experience that teaches me about something. So awakening can come through many forms, and that's the idea of gnosis, you know. This video can be gnosis for you in some way, awaken something within you. But, you know, a lot of times gnosis is like something that is just, it just arrives, you know. It's not something that we always know what's on the other side, you know. It is the awakening that comes through moving through the spiral in a way. So yeah. Okay, so the next part of this video is related to integration, and integration is very important. It's really important because there are so many different things that are thrown at us, and it's hard to digest it all, you know. And when we think about food, you know, some of us, like, I think we like eat too much, honestly, in the US. And we consume too much in general. And there's a lot to digest there. And when we go back to like parasites, it's like we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot through so much food that we consume, you know. there are parasites in like everything, and through the mainstream food system, our food is really not the best quality, and there's nothing we can really do about it other than go to farmers markets or work with farms directly. But a lot of us don't do that. A lot of us also don't have those resources or that availability. So I share all of this because I feel like food can also be medicine for integration. For me, I have used a lot of different herbs to help me during this time, to help move me through this integration period, you know. And this is really important, but when we're moving through some type of like illness, or we're trying to heal something, or we're trying to break a cycle or a curse, or, you know, a monitoring spirit, or so many different things that are probably affecting us in the unseen. But when we're trying to move through that and we can't, or we don't have the skills to journey to the unseen, to really see with our third eye, or, you know, our internal capacities to understand like, oh, there's something happening in this specific part of my aura, or this specific part of my experience, you know, how do we actually see that? How do we heal that if we can't see it, you know, whatever that thing is? And what will happen is that your guides, those in the unseen, will work on it, definitely. But sometimes, in order for us to integrate it, we have to see it tangibly. So it slowly comes closer and closer to us throughout different life stages until we're able to tangibly see it. And maybe we're able to tangibly see it because now it is in the material in a way that is a physical person, a relationship, a dynamic, but it also can come up in a disease or an illness or some type of condition. It can come up as something happening with your house, or a pet, or a plant, or anything that is in your external reality, you know, that's related to you in some way. For me, I got a really bad cyst recently, about 7 weeks ago, and I have been moving through that pain and experience in my own way, in my own time. And through that, I'm learning a lot about how to heal my body, what are the right herbs to use, what are the different tactics and things that I can do for myself that will help me. And it's also been teaching me about rest and about not pushing forward and not forcing myself to be productive when I just can't. I just can't. Like, could hardly walk, could hardly move. I was just like on the bed most of the day. Was, you know, taking showers 3 times a day, just like cleaning my wounds. Would get up to like eat. Couldn't really walk my dog. You know, good thing, you know, I live with my mom right now, and she really supported me so much during this time of integration and healing. And it's funny, my cyst was like right on my tailbone, right on, you know, the root chakra. So really, this is like the most physical form of energy. And going back to what I was sharing before, it was like this thing had to be super physical for me to see that I was like, you know, really healing from something. And what the cyst was related to for me was around, you know, ancestral healing, stepping up as a leader in my community, allowing myself to be authentic and shine without feeling bad that I was like dimming other people's light by being like a bright star, you know? I think sometimes that happens a lot with people, especially Leos. I'm a Leo rising, and I feel like people will sometimes get triggered by my comfortability in my own body or within my own light and presence. And a lot of people will like throw the idea of like, oh, it's just a mask, it's just a facade, why do they want so much attention? But Leo is ruled by the sun, and they're always going to be ruled by the sun, you know. So I feel like that is part of our purpose. We're always meant to shine, we're always meant to share. And I think with people who have a fear of being seen or a fear of sharing, it can make them feel like, ooh, this is hitting something that I do not want to look at, I do not want to deal with. And I can totally empathize with that because, you know, as a Leo rising, I feel like that is something that is pretty easy for me to do, is to show up in this way. But for some people, it can be like pushing a boulder up a hill. And all you can do is just have compassion for people and knowing that there are things that they're really good at that like I'm not good at all. So all of this to say that integration is really important. And whatever you're integrating from, whatever you're healing from, whatever cycle that you feel like you are completing, it's also important to know and reflect, what did I learn? Where am I? And how can I move forward in a way where I can move in a way that I've learned my lesson, and that I can make sure that I don't go back into that cycle, you know. And also notice during that integration period, what were different things that were stripped from your life? What were different things that were released? And making sure that you're not going back to those things. Because if you go back to those things, sometimes you're opening up that loop again. You know, you're going back to that old version of yourself, you know. It's funny, like my cyst, like I pretty much was like just releasing so much blood all the time, and I had to have like a toilet paper like square thing that I created by just folding it a bunch of times, like on my butt crack, you know. And like 3 times a day I would like take it off and put a new one. And it was like I had a pad, and I was like going through like a period for 7 months, and I don't have a womb, but it feels like, you know, something related to birthing and womb healing, and even my own birth into the world and my birth story, and, you know, being birthed as like a baby with like the umbilical cord around my neck, you know. I feel like there was a lot related to like my birth story and how I show up in the world, that was like being healed and tended to as well. So there's a lot in this video, a lot of jewels, a lot of nuggets. So I hope you are able to benefit from my experience as a reflection of you and a reflection of different things that maybe you're going through. And we're all different, you know. Again, we all go through gnosis in a different way. Different things hit home differently, you know. So yeah, my intention here is always to be of benefit and service to the web of life. You know, that's something one of my teachers says, and that is something that I continue to try to embody through everything that I do. So thank you for watching. Thank you again to the ancestral homelands that we're on. And yeah, please share, like, comment, subscribe. I have more things coming out, more music, more fun things, you know. I think the cool thing about me as a person and this platform that I'm creating is that sometimes it could be kind of serious like this, sometimes it could be fun and, you know, make music. Sometimes it could be funny and just make stupid videos, and I want to be all of those things, you know, because I am all of those things. And you are all of those things too, in your own way. So continue to move through your own process and your journey of embodying the beauty within your heart and the voice of your soul. See you.